Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Monroe, Washington.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at Wheel Talk Podcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.
Go. So maybe if you turn the sound down on your computer?
Yeah, I think we're good.
I don't know. Okay, let's talk about what we were just talking about real quick. Do you have any weird, food pairings that you do that are weird?
Food pairings. Not that I know of. I think I was just talking to Rachel about something I ate when I was a kid.
And we're live, by the way.
Yeah, we're live. I'm trying to remember. We'll have to. What's your weird food pairing? Because I'm trying to remember what mine was.
Okay, so ever since I was little, I've loved goldfish, which we called fishies when I was younger. Fishies. I've always loved fishies and Skittles together. And he was like, "What's the ratio?" The ratio is like 1 Skittle to 10 goldfish.
So it's like
that's the ratio.
Yeah. So in a big bag, a small bag of goldfish. Goldfish would be like a store-bought cash register size bag of Skittles.
Correct. I got the one from 7-Eleven that's the resealable bag.
Yeah, that's a big bag. That's 3 small bags, probably.
No, it's 2.
2?
And,
okay.
Yeah.
I don't eat goldfish that much.
I put a regular size Skittle in there, and I'm not sure that was the appropriate size. I think I might have needed a king size. But when I was growing up, we always got the gallon thing of goldfish.
Yeah.
That was the main snack.
Gosh. There's got to be some weird pairings, but it was I always liked ketchup, so I would dip stuff in ketchup a lot. So, I probably ate some, Doritos with nacho cheese Doritos and dipped them in ketchup or...
Oh, yeah.
Something like that, or...
Have you ever had Lay's with ketchup? Just straight Lay's with ketchup?
No.
The Canadians that are listening to this are yes, Becca, I just want a point. I'm pretty sure I just want a point. Ketchup chips are the shit.
I probably had them on the same plate, and it just, got into the ketchup when I was a kid.
Okay, when I was in college, my roommate and I would get a whole bag of Lay's potato chips, squirt ketchup in it, and sometimes she would put vinegar in it
gross.
as well, and then shake it up and then eat it.
Gosh, that sounds gross.
It's just like fries with ketchup.
I don't know.
It is.
It's just potatoes and ketchup.
Just a regular Lay's potato chip with just try a little ketchup on it. It's so good.
Also, the thing is, when I eat anything with a dip or salsa or anything, I'm very heavy on the chip to salsa portion. I'm
yes, I know.
90% chip to 10% salsa or 15% salsa.
We had this conversation already, and Rachel's heavy on the dip, right? She's
60-40, 60% chip, 40% dip. I'm oh my gosh.
I'm like a 50-50. I'm straight in the middle.
That's too much. Probably because I just like the saltiness of whatever chip I'm eating.
Yeah, the only one I'm not 50-50 on is salsa. I don't do that. I'm not a huge crunchy salsa person. So
I don't like
I
chunky
just like
salsa.
The flavor of the salsa.
Restaurant style salsa.
I like restaurant style salsa that's all mixed up, real good.
Or Chili's salsa.
Pace, where it's all there's all the chunks and stuff. That's not my flavor. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
So
no thanks.
It's more of an 80-20.
I just dip in to get the juice of the salsa and maybe some onion or something. I do not like the chunks of tomato. Chunky, get that shit out of here. We'll throw that in the processor and blend it up so that it's fine, and then we'll put it back in the jar.
I agree with that.
If it's chunky enough, because it's no. Give me just salsa juice, and that would be good
Except
enough.
for mango salsa, I'll eat that shit like it's no tomorrow. That shit is the best. And cowboy caviar.
I don't know what that is. Cowboy caviar?
It's just it's just beans and corn and onions and deliciousness.
Is it like a queso? Like a skillet queso?
No, it's like the black bean salsa, but not like smushy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I already had dinner tonight, so I'm good. You might not have.
What? Had chips and salsa?
I did have chips and salsa with tacos tonight.
Oh, yum, tacos.
We got them from Costco. Get the Costco street taco batch.
Nice.
It's good.
How was your day? Other than the tacos, since we already know
it was great. It started off with it was usually what the way this happens is it carries over from the weekend, and I'm just like, because a Monday's just a Monday to me, but it started off with dropping off a bunch of packages outside to get picked up. So I had 14 packages picked up from orders this weekend, which was pretty great.
Yeah.
And because I did the restock on Friday, I shipped out probably 10, maybe 8 on Saturday, and then 14 today. So pretty awesome. Did the farmer's market on Saturday. It was cold and it was not as good attended as normal, so I made probably $6.50, a little bit lower than average there. So I'm glad I'm doing one more outdoor event for the year, but it's starting to get a little chillier, so I'm like not looking forward to those. But yeah, the rest of the day, got in the studio, finished up a bunch of shot glasses that I threw yesterday. Yeah. So I was on a throwing session and made 136 shot glasses off the hump.
I saw that. That was insane.
And I just finished them all tonight. Got Alex was over today, so she helped glaze like 5 boards of different work. And usually it's about probably 3 to 4 boards of work to fill a kiln. So I've got enough to fill another kiln. And I got that loaded up, got it firing, and I'm talking to you. So yeah, pretty productive. Boom. Good start to the week.
Nice.
How about yourself?
It was good, I think.
Yeah, you were talking about you might be late because you had some people picking some stuff up. So that's more stuff going out of the studio.
Yeah, the studio is definitely emptying out. Like, definitely emptying out. Sold the oval kiln, sold the middle kiln, sold the small kiln.
You did sell the oval kiln.
I sold the oval kiln.
Do you have to transport it?
But I did. No, I don't have to transport it.
Nice.
Yes! I know, that was like... So did you
get somebody that was like fully educated on what they were getting? It's like, you're kind of I know you're a balance between that. You had some inquiries and you were like, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, or like, this is not a smart decision, or...
Yeah, I literally told some guy, I was like, no, I'm not selling this to you. Well, the first guy, he was like, well, my wife has been dabbling in ceramics. And I was like, nah. No. No. I'm not selling you an oval kiln that your wife can literally fit inside.
I'm not selling you a kiln that you can kill somebody in and just cremate their body.
If you're looking for... You can find so many cheaper, smaller kilns.
You could buy a brand new kiln for a third of what you're trying to spend.
Right.
That's a good starter kiln.
I'm selling that kiln for $3,400, and the person that is buying it does have some like experience and has been like growing a business. So there is that. She's not super experienced with the kiln, but I think it'll be fine. Hopefully, she can grow into it. And you know, so and she also has resources to ask as well. So that's good too. So I got her name from Bruning, so it's good that there was like a referral.
Nice.
So that was good. I think I got the pug mill sold. I think I have every single large item that needed to be sold, which is great. I'm going to pay off the loan, the SBA loan this week. So that's good. I had to loan myself $10,000, and then... Once I get the money from the kiln and the pug mill and everything, I'll pay myself back. Yeah.
Was there a time limit on that, or you were saying you had to pay for that before the business was sold, or before the
I have to pay for it because there's collateral there's collateral on the loan, so I have to pay for the loan off before I sell the equipment. So, and like most of it's spoken for, it's not like sold yet, but yeah. So, but it'll be done by the end of the week anyway, so it'll be fine.
Is it more like when they get it, the funds are collected kind of thing? You're getting.
They want to make sure that they can get their money. Essentially.
Oh, I meant like you're starting to get money coming in as people are picking things up, right?
Yeah. So, yes, that's happening, and the studio really does look quite bare.
Yeah, I saw you doing some cleaning, I want to say, or you were tidying and moving things or consolidating.
I won't be cleaning the floors until the very end. I'm not an idiot. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm like, the middle glaze room is my only concern because there's like a ton of glazes in there, and so. But Val picked up a bunch of chemicals and stuff, so that's good.
Did your vehicle issues get resolved? I know last week we were talking about it.
Van is sold.
Nice.
I sold the van this morning. So, to a friend, too. So, to a friend's husband. So, that was good.
Nice.
And he's a mechanic, so he can fix it.
Did he appreciate the tabs being paid for already?
Well, he has to buy new tabs anyway.
Oh.
The tabs.
The tabs.
He has to buy new tabs anyway. So, there's that. But,
one less thing to worry about.
It's good. My regular car is still in the shop, so I'm still waiting on that. But, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I got to glaze 200 mugs in the next week, though. That should be fun.
Yeah, I saw you getting your last batch of actually making on the wheel this past week. And that's all wholesale orders. Is that for one wholesale client?
Yeah, I've got like $4,000 in wholesale orders before the end of the year.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So that's all the mugs, and you were making planters or something too, right?
Yeah, mugs and planters.
Nice.
Yeah. And I have a place setting as well. And 12 bowls for Andrew because he's a Dumbo. Anyway.
Has people started taking the kilns yet?
No, the kilns aren't going until the end of the bisque kiln will go after I do this last bisque load. But then I'm just going to use the big and the small. And then the small one won't go till Christmas.
How many kilns do you have right now? 4?
3.
3. Okay. You have the
Small
oval, the baby, and then your bisque one is kind of your medium-sized one.
Yeah. Small one won't go till Christmas. Large one won't go till all my orders are done. So
right.
It's like I can't let them
you
leave
can't. You're not
until-
gonna bisque in a humongous oval kiln, I would guess, because you're trying to.
Yeah,
you don't have that much work to fill it.
Right. I have one more bisque load left, and then I'll be good on that one. So I can scoot that at the door. But I gotta help her. I'm gonna help the person buying the bisque kiln, change the elements and everything like that, so she knows how to do it. She's gonna do it. I'm just gonna direct her.
Nice.
Yes. It's easier to do it when you move it anyway. So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. What are we doing?
Did we have a review to read? I have a review I could read, I guess.
Sweet. Let's do that.
All right. This one is from the 3rd of November from... Oh, man, this is a name.
Remember the 5th of November.
Lucia K. Maya at mac.com. I don't know. She put her... That's her username. The title is Favorite Pottery Podcast. I love your podcast, and it's my favorite while I'm in my ceramic studio or anytime, really. I enjoy your meandering conversations, hearing about your lives, pottery related and not. I also learn useful things related to ceramics and selling, social media, etc., while being entertained at the same time. You two are great companions in my studio, and my pottery friend here on Maui recommended your podcast. I see her review here, too, in case you were wondering why you were getting so many Maui listeners. Thanks for this great show. So I bet
it's
her...
one person.
I think her friend is Jen that did the other review, and she was the one that used to live in Cincinnati, which is where I live, and did work out of the studio that I get my supplies from. So it was Funky Fired Arts at that time. Now it's Queen City Clay. So
Queen City Clay.
Thank you for the review. That was a 5-star. And we're getting to the end of the reviews. So if you want to keep hearing reviews on the podcast, submit those, and we will keep reading them, because I am down to 2 on my list that we have not read yet. So,
yeah, get on that, guys. Get on it. Okay. So what we're gonna do today is we picked a bunch of questions that are.
Yeah, we asked you all to submit
theme.
questions to us, and we've got a good list now. I mean, we've probably got, I don't know, 15, 20 questions here that you all gave to us, which will help us over the next number of episodes that we can answer.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to start with just basic listener question that's not necessarily related to these batch of questions that all relate to glazing.
Yeah.
So we're going to start there as our typical like listener questioner segment, and then we'll go to the actual like topic.
I'm so excited about this question.
Okay. Do you want me to read it? Because I know you're on deck here with your answer, I'm sure.
No, I'm not really on deck. I'm just really excited.
Your
about
hands
it.
are moving so much.
I haven't
You're, like,
thought about it. I'm
with
just
your
really.
fingertips, so it doesn't make any noise.
Yay!
Oh my gosh. All right, so the question is...
Everybody's going to laugh so hard when they hear the question.
What's your biggest pet peeve watching other potters do their work, and why? This came from... Oh gosh, I'm going to get this wrong. Aletha Bean. You ever see a name and you're like, how do you break that up into words? I think it's Aletha Bean. But maybe it's not. All right.
I think you're right.
So what's your biggest pet peeve watching other potters? And I know you kind of relate to this because you watch TikTok a lot, and there's a variety of skill sets on there. And
yes, but I will absolutely not bash on the TikTok potters, because a lot of them are learning, and this is not about learning potters. This is about potters that, okay, I'm going to say this, and people are probably going to get mad at me, but I'm doing it anyway.
I have something in mind, but I don't know if you're going to say it. Go for it.
Okay, my biggest pet peeve is when people with really, really, really large platforms who sell a lot of stuff cannot throw in like 2 to 3 poles. So they have to like keep pulling up over and over and over and over again. That's my biggest pet peeve. I don't want to offend anybody, but that's it.
That's your biggest pet peeve. That they're able to sell a certain amount and a lot of people buy their stuff, but they could be more efficient because they...
Yeah, it's just the efficiency part. Like, and it's the video, right? It's a video, right? Like, I don't care how you throw. You can... It's the end result, but what, you know, when they like when people post a video and they have like 15 polls when it could have been 3, that's like I have to move on. I'm like, next video.
Yeah.
Because it's I'm all about efficiency, so it's like I'm like, okay, and like,
yeah.
You know.
But it's almost like you can't. I mean, you could say something to them, but you'd want to say something privately so that they don't feel embarrassed.
I would never.
But it's like you don't want to say anything because they're like, well, people are buying my stuff, so like obviously it's working.
I definitely am all about the end. It's like the fact, you know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's all about the end result, and like however you get there is fine. As you know, it's just as somebody who has watched. I have watched so many different videos of people throwing. It may be that, or somebody who's teaching on YouTube. Anybody who's teaching on YouTube that is teaching blatantly incorrectly, like who doesn't have the core skill set to teach. That might be my other one too. But like I said, everybody's on a path, everybody's like learning their things. I just can't watch the videos. That's it. Like I just can't watch them.
There's tons of videos to watch, right? So, but there's also a number of people that are watching that know nothing about the medium. And they don't know
it's so
that is inefficient or not the quickest way to get from A to B.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that less experienced potters have more views from not potters, because like you are pulling up a certain amount of time, so it is extremely interesting, and like, you know, the process is a lot slower. Like, whereas somebody who, like, I'm not going to use me as an example, but like Rebecca Graves or a production potter, they're going to pull up 3 times, it's over. It's quick. It's not satisfying because it was done in 2 seconds. And somebody who's maybe learning or like a little bit slower, which is fine. It's just so much more satisfying to watch as an unexperienced person. You can kind of break up the
steps of what they're doing easier when they have more steps in there and they kind of repeat the steps. Okay, now I'm going to cut off the skirt before I push in the bottom or something, and then I'm going to compress the rim, and then I'm going to do my second pull, and then I'm going to compress the rim, and then I'm going to do my third pull, compress the rim, and then cut off the top that's uneven. And
yeah, it's like super satisfying for the unfamiliar eye. And I think that is awesome. I think it's great. There's a place for these videos, just not in my brain.
Yeah, you only have so much time, and you only want to watch certain things. I guess mine would be, I don't know, like everything somebody makes if they cut off the rim or something. That kind of
like cutting off the rim.
Even if it's like not even that bad. It's like just compress it well, and it doesn't have to be exactly perfect.
I think the only time that cutting off the rim is really, really, really acceptable is bottles.
Yeah, I cut off the rim of my oil bottles, but they have to be flat because I'm going to put a top on it, and it's got to be flat or else it's not going to sit right. I would say that, or just like people that are blatantly like throwing shirtless or something like that. That's like, they're just trying to get eyeballs for the sake of getting eyeballs. Like, that kind of annoys me sometimes, but it's like,
you said it, not me.
It's like, you do you. It's like, whatever.
Okay. Oh, no, I won't say it. Wait, I'm not going to say who it was, but me and a friend were talking about a certain potter who we admire a whole lot, and I was like, he's the only one that does, like, I was joking, but I was like, he's the only one that doesn't do it shirtless, and she was like, and he's the only one that I wouldn't mind if he did.
Jeez.
I'll tell you after who that was.
To each their own.
That's funny.
Is there a lot of that on TikTok? I've seen some, I mean, not like shirtless, but like, I mean, women do it too. It's not just men.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that almost bugs me more.
And they're going to get the eyeballs because, like,
I mean, I watch them. I'm not gay, but why wouldn't you?
So,
like,
all right. Is that the biggest pet peeve? I think that's my biggest pet peeve. I don't really have any other pet peeves watching other potters do their stuff. I mean, maybe if like the camera angle is terrible or something, or the lighting is like not clear, but I mean, people are getting better nowadays. They see more videos and they kind of know what's worthy of posting versus not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like I'm going to offend so many people with mine. Oh, well.
I think you're probably not the only one that's thinking that.
Yeah, probably. But I do have to say something. It's something that a friend was like, Ryan never judges you. And I wanted to say thank you for that, by the way.
What do you mean?
You disagree with me a lot, but you always just laugh through my weird things that I say.
I mean, why judge somebody? I can't, like, I'm completely different than you. I'm completely different than Rachel.
I know,
why judge somebody based on you don't think exactly the way I think, so you're doing something wrong. It's like,
I know, but that's why we're a good team. Yeah. That's why we're a good team. Yeah. Anyway, thanks. You're cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
You're cool. Then our awkward moment is over. Okay, so.
We are talking about a bunch of questions that we got related to glazing. And I think we've got questions like after we do glazing episodes or just in general, we get I want to know more about glazing. So we got probably 5 questions or 6, 8 questions about glazing specifically when we asked for listener questions last week or 2 weeks ago. And we're going to answer those. So it's a variety.
We're going to try at least.
Yeah. So it's a variety of, how to get into it as well as actual process of finding materials and stuff like that. So where do you want to start, Becca?
Well, I guess we should,
Should we start with...
Let's start with the second one, best way to store materials.
Well, before you even get materials, should we talk about the first one, talking about whether you should...
Why did you ask me that question if you already had the answer?
Okay, so obviously there's different options of buying commercial versus mixing your own. If we start there, what are the differences between them? I know we might have touched on this before, but what would you say about how someone should decide whether they should go with commercial glazes versus mixing their own and what they're getting into there?
We can talk about under glazes too in that part.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about mixing your own versus commercial, what's the difference?
Commercial, I would say commercial it could include dry material that's a commercial glaze that you add water to and mix up too. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking Amico Potter's Choice, Stroke & Coats, stuff like that.
Mako.
So any of those that you buy in a bottle and you paint on, or you dip, or you get some from Kentucky Mud Works that's 10 pounds of dry and you add water to it and you have a bucket of their glaze. You don't have to have any materials outside of the liquid stuff that you have after it's mixed up.
Yeah, Kentucky Mud Works makes their own in-house, right?
Yeah, they have
and
dry.
Sells it dry.
It's mostly dry. I think you could buy
but
liquid,
they mix it in-house and then they sell it dry.
Yeah. You could also buy pints that you could paint on, but...
Right. Okay, so that's the same as my Tacoma Clay Art Center does the same thing. So, yeah, I think when we were talking about difference between commercial versus mixing your own, commercial glazes are pre-mixed. They are pre-made for you, whether it be dry or wet. And then making your own, you're buying the individual ingredients, and you are...
following a recipe, assembling it, and adding water and doing all that. Sieving
it's like
doing all that kind of thing.
So it's like the difference is like making your own brownie mix from scratch with all the different ingredients versus buying the brownie mix already pre-made that you just have to pour it out and add water.
Or buying brownies from Kroger that's already made.
That's but I think that one's pretty apparent.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the difference, right? And glazing is basically just like baking anyway, so it's a really good kind of I don't know, whatever. So, what do you prefer, Ryan?
I prefer mixing my own because I'm a cheap ass and it's much more cost effective to make your own. If you do buy commercial, I would say you're probably don't want to get into the whole process of knowing what the glaze is going to look like. Are you buying the right materials? Are you mixing it? Like all the process that goes into making it to a liquid state is out the window because it's already in a liquid state. And that's part of the price tag that you're paying for, as well as the website that you buy it from already has test tiles. So you kind of know what it's going to look like at the cone that you're firing to. If you fire to the right temperature that they specify, they probably already have some sign on it that says it's food safe or whatever. So it kind of eases some of that worry. Yep. And they give you the steps of how to apply it, you know?
Yeah, you should always make your own test tiles anyway. But yes, to get a feeling for what they are, for sure. I prefer... What do I prefer versus what do I do? I prefer buying commercial glazes. However, what do? I mix them because I'm a cheap ass. So, and also, I feel like my glazes are not better, but they are more...
Did they like fit your clay body better, would you say?
Oh my god, my glazes fit my clay body to a fucking T. It's like I don't get a single crinkle crack when you, what is that called? Like tinkle tink tink tink
Craze?
tink 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 tink
Oh,
tink, tink,
yeah, the
tink,
pings
tink.
and yeah, I
Yeah.
get the pings on certain glazes.
I don't get a single one of those when I pull them out of the kiln. So my glazes fit super well, but that was just by chance. Hardcore. And but I also feel like I've never found glazes that are similar, like super similar to all of mine. You know, they're very unique. That was the
And your glazes that you mix up are all the same base, and you have different colorants to them for everything, right? So fitting a clay, really, if one of the glazes fits the clay, then all the glazes will fit the clay.
Most of them fit them, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so, and I don't like to, I mean, I hate mixing glazes, so if I had all the money in the world, yeah, you bet your butt I'd buy them.
I mean, the other thing with commercial besides, hey, if you mix your own, you get more like unique, in quotes, colors because only so many people use the exact recipe that you use.
Right.
But also, if you do commercial, there are a lot of people using those recipes, so you kind of can find out what other people have success with because there's Amico Potter's Choice groups and things like that. So you can see what combos people use that like come out amazing, and you can reproduce them. But also, you have to apply it the same way. There's more. I don't know. I would say there's less science to it because somebody painting on one coat of a glaze can be totally different from somebody else painting one coat of a glaze on, thickness wise.
Yep.
I'd much rather like dip my glazes because I generally know from using the glazes over time how thick they should be and all that kind of thing. But
now it should be noted that me and Ryan both buy a few commercial glazes.
Yes.
Which one do you buy?
I buy Kentucky Mudworks Satin Black because I really like the satin.
Yep.
And I buy Kentucky Mudworks Inferno Red. It's very similar to Amico Ancient Copper, if you're familiar with that. It's like a coppery rust color, and it's got some microcrystals if it's slow cooled a little bit. And then I buy Laguna White, which is, I think, the Moroccan Sands batch, because I really like the way it looks on my Laguna clay. That's what we used at Baker Hunt. And I just looked at what the price of a 50-pound bag was, and it was reasonable enough to where I was like, I just want to buy a 50-pound bag of dry mix and just mix that up. So
and sometimes it's just not worth the money to even try. If you found the perfect glaze, it's like, nah, I'll just buy
And I already have like 10 glazes. I don't want to go through the process of finding another glaze and testing and doing all that. I'd rather just spend the money for the Laguna White. I know what it's going to look like.
You still should be doing tests, by the way. If you buy a commercial glaze, always be doing tests on your clay, your specific clay body. Do all the shock tests and all the things, because don't be a lazy potter. Test your shit. Okay, the ones that I buy are Raven from Tacoma Clay Art, which is basically satin black. I didn't want to try and figure out a food safe satin black. I was just like, it's fine, I'll just buy it. Which is good. It sells really well for planters. And then P&Z Clear from Tacoma Clay Art as well. Their clear doesn't craze. It is pristine. So those are the two that I buy, I believe. And I buy I buy Mako Low Fire Clear just for the, for the paint and pot stuff. But yeah. So, and those I buy both of those dry, and then mix them. And then mix them with water.
Yeah. And I normally and I'm still a cheap ass when I buy those. So when Kentucky Mudworks has 20% off sales, like they just had one for Black Friday, if I'm low on those glazes, I'll buy them 20% off and get 20 pounds of it because that's going to fill a bucket. That's going to fill a 5-gallon bucket. And I probably got three bags of commercial glaze sitting downstairs in the studio that are ready to go when I'm ready. So I had the money to spend and they was on sale. So I was like, let's just buy it and stock up and
Right.
good. So
Yeah.
it gets a little bit cheaper if you look for the price and you don't reactively buy it. So
The disadvantage to mixing your own glazes is that I do feel like, especially if you're in a small space, all of the glazing materials, like, is just so consuming. Like, there's,
it is.
like, I have 7 trash cans full of glaze material, and then I have 45 little tiny test bags, and, you know, and it's just like, and, like, all the things, they just take up so much space. That is the bummer. Yeah. Like, if I didn't have to buy all of the, you know, if I didn't have all that wasted, like, if I was in a super small studio, I'd totally buy glazes. Because then I just, like, I would buy the dry ones, and then I would just add to it. Just because it's so much more of a space saver.
Yeah. Yeah, I have cat litter buckets with Nefsi and silica and EPK, and I've probably got 8 buckets of cat litter buckets with dry materials that I bought in 50-pound bags. And then I have the excess 50-pound bags that are not empty.
Right.
Under that table, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, they do take up a ton of space, so I could totally see if somebody didn't have a lot of space to have, like, a glazing area, where buying materials would definitely be ideal. Yeah. Or buying glazes would definitely be ideal.
So that kind of answers one of these other questions, the best way to store the materials. So I store mine in cat litter buckets when I'm buying generally more than 10 pounds of the material. Usually I'll buy a 50-pound bag, and I'll put it in one of those cat litter containers that probably holds, depends on the material and how dense it is, but I would say probably 25 pounds of glaze material, or like raw material. And then otherwise I'll put it, a lot of them in, if it's like 10 pounds, I'll put it in one of those like screw-on lids so that it's like sealed and it's not something that's going to snap off. Or I've got these like glass containers that we used upstairs for like pasta and stuff before Rachel got some new ones, and they have screw-on lids that are glass with a metal screw-on lid.
Yeah.
I generally use those for 5 to 10 pound increments.
Yeah. Jeez.
What about you? How do you store yours currently?
Currently, well, not anymore, I guess, because Val took them all. But I have 10-gallon trash cans with the flippy lids, you know, like the flip down. I think it's super important, always important to have lids on your containers, by the way. Always.
Yeah.
Because if you accidentally drop some glaze, if you accidentally drop EPK on the lid, then it's just on the lid. It's not in the silica. You know, you didn't mix anything, so that's nice.
And you're not getting water or something that gets inside it that would not be good for dry materials.
Right, except for I did have a few rogue pennies that got in.
Oh.
It was fine. I mean, they just didn't sieve through, obviously. Right. But yeah, so I use those trash cans and I line them up. I think that I probably would prefer, IKEA has these bomb-ass trash cans that have like the lid and they all the way close. I think I'd prefer those. They had the ones that were like the dog food ones that were short and squatty. Those are okay, but they have taller ones that have lids and they like flip up, and those are bomb. And they do fit a 50-pound bag. So they're just a little, I mean, I don't think they're too pricey, but if I could revert all to that, because my trash cans are kind of rounded, like they're oval-ish, and the ones from IKEA are square. And so that's what I would prefer. I don't know if they change the style every single year, but you know, that those work out really good. It was so frustrating when trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the glazing material instead of like keeping them in bags, because a lot of people just keep them in bags, which is fine too. But they're kind of hard to see what is what when they're in the bags. But it was just like, it's so expensive to find all of the things.
Yeah, I just kind of second-handed containers and held on to stuff and kind of built it up to where I had enough to store.
Yeah.
But so definitely having something for the 50-pound bags is much better than having just 50-pound bags sitting around. And marble is like on my. She's like
She's
kissing me.
licking you. Yeah, and keeping them dry as possible. And then the smaller stuff, if it's in one of those tiny little brown bags and it's a tester, I just keep it in the brown bag. I'm not going to worry about that. But if it's like 10 pounds or whatever, I got jars from the pizza shop, the artichoke jars that they used to have, and they were like gallon jars, so that's what I use.
Yeah. Another good one, if you have carbonates and oxides and stuff, is to use like the Talenti containers that screw on. Those are kind of small.
Oh yeah, the ice cream containers or whatever.
Yeah, I use those for slip too, but I mean those will be good for the raw materials because they're clear and they have a good sealed top. And
it seals.
Yeah. And like if you're in your basement studio and you have waterproofing issues and your floor leaks, do not put the bags of raw materials on your floor because they could get wet.
Ryan, how would you ever know that?
I mean, I did have waterproofing issues, but we got it fixed by the time I started getting big bags of stuff. But I mean, I probably had some cardboard boxes on the ground when that happened initially, but you know.
Yeah. For sure.
What about the whole store? I generally store all that stuff closer to the ground because, I mean, I do have a lot of the stuff above my wedging table, but it's all sealed. I would say generally store it as close to the ground as you can because if it's dry, you'd want it to fall the shortest amount of distance. If it's dusty, you wouldn't want it to like be up in the rafters and...
Yeah, but if they're in bags or anything like that, make sure you're putting them on like a pallet or something lifted so that if you do have any water issues, like in your garage or whatever, it doesn't get wet.
I was thinking more like if the dust comes from the materials that it hits the ground the shortest distance.
Sure.
So it's not like sitting in the air. I don't know.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
Maybe. What else about... There's not
Where's the best place to buy materials?
There are online options, but I buy mine at Queen City Clay because it's close, and I do not want to pay to get stuff shipped because usually you're buying stuff in 5, 10, 50-pound increments, and that costs a lot to ship. So even if you're like, hey, this place is expensive to buy it, I mean, you're still going to have to transport it, so... I would say if you have a close studio, like, would you buy raw material? How far is your place? It's like an hour and...
Hour. It's 2 hours round trip, like 2.5, 3 hours round trip.
How far would you drive to get raw materials if you had to versus buying online?
I wouldn't buy online.
You would always drive, like, what's the furthest you would drive? Further, like 2 hours there, 2 hours back? Would you drive that far to get raw materials if you had to?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay.
I don't like buying online, and oh my god, Marvel's so...
She just like bit my chin.
Anyway, I would never buy stuff online. There's something about buying raw materials from like an actual location that you have to like go to. For me, I don't know if I necessarily trust online.
One thing that I do like online, and I think Sean and Valerie do, they buy their mason stains off of U.S. Pigments, right?
I think they buy them straight from Mason. I don't know. I know a couple years ago they weren't. They were buying them from Tacoma, and I messaged him, and I was like, "Did you know you can buy these straight from the factory? Because you can buy Mason stains straight from Mason, and you can also buy them from U.S. Pigments." But I don't know. Like at that time, that was a while ago. I don't know if they changed or whatever, but. Yeah. But, like, also, you know, I would rather buy from a supplier and have them ship it to me than buying online. Like, when you say online, like, I think of, like, Amazon or some weird place. I don't even know where you would buy clay materials online other than from a supplier, you know.
Well, I mean, could you buy raw materials from, like, the ceramic shop or just some raw material supplier, like U.S. Pigments is one for mason stains or copper carbonate or whatever that are colorants. Like you could buy it from them, but
yeah,
I'm sure there are online sites that just have raw materials that you could buy EPK from.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. I've never even looked into it, By the way, just PS for anybody that's like, "Ooh, mason stains," you have to buy it in 10-pound bags. So the lowest quantity you can get is 10 pounds.
You mean if you buy it directly from them?
From Mason, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hell of a lot cheaper, but yeah, you have to buy it.
Yeah. They want to make it worth it, or else they're spending too much time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that's true. You probably could find a supplier that's within 4 hours of you that would be willing to ship it.
Yeah.
And you could pay them, and then they could package it and ship it to you. And it wouldn't be as bad as buying it from some company in California if you're on the East Coast.
Yeah.
There's probably a supplier within your range that would be willing to ship it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've never lived super far away from a supplier, so I can't even...
I mean, I don't know where everybody's making from, but I would assume some people do not have a supplier within a couple hours of their home.
You would think.
But maybe. Yes. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say, especially with like USPS or UPS or USPS, like shipping it, especially if you're getting clay, like wherever you're getting clay, you should be able to get, but some people get clay from online too, which I've never done because I've always needed more than like a bag of clay,
Yeah.
There's that.
So we would say first find a local place if you can, buy it from there, and then see if there's a local place that's maybe not as close, but they will be shipping it to you if that's possible.
Yeah.
That'll save you more money because some of these online places, and a lot of these materials vary based on the market for it as well. Like the demand for it. I bought some cobalt recently, and like the price was significantly different than what it was 6 months ago.
Yeah, for sure. Cobalt is so expensive. I was just thinking about that.
It was like $50 for a pound or something like that. And then I realized I got back to my studio and I already had a pound up there, and I paid like half. I paid half that the last time I bought it.
Oh my God, that's the worst. Like one time I lost a pound of tin behind my freezer. It was like a chest freezer that lifted up, and it like fell behind the freezer. And then I couldn't find it anywhere, and I needed a pound of tin, literally a whole pound, which was $25. And then I bought a pound of tin, and then I came back and found it behind the freezer. Like that day, I was so mad.
Yeah, that stuff is expensive.
But also keep in mind that like things like cobalt, the reason that it's so expensive, well, especially cobalt, I guess, is that a lot of, I don't know about anybody else's suppliers, but my suppliers will not buy cobalt from things that are not ethically sourced. So cobalt mining is extremely dangerous, and it's killed a lot of people. So they make sure to buy from mines that are
taking the right precautions and paying their workers appropriately for the hazards that are involved.
Yeah, and that's why it's a lot more too. So, like, I asked Quinn one time, I was like, why is it so expensive? He was like, well, I'd rather pay more for something that's ethically sourced than not. And I'm like, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind too, and also ask. If you are concerned about that stuff, say, hey, do you know for sure if your cobalt is mined ethically? Or, you can look up the different carbonates and stuff, and cobalt carb, and see which ones, are in question.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. I think we hit some of these. And then there's some about mixing glazes, but where do you find your glaze recipes? What's a good recommendation for that, for people that are like, okay, I'm ready to go into this? Where do I find recipes that are reliable or that are good?
There's a few different places you can find them.
Yeah.
Let's see. Glazy.org. I've only gotten like one recipe off there and I didn't use it, but they do have a lot of recipes. Glazy.org. John Britt's book. You use that one, right?
Yeah. It is Mastering Midrange. I forget. We should probably know what this name of this is.
It's just Mid-Range Glazes. That's all it's called. By John Britt. Mid-Range Glazes by John Britt.
I think it's Mastering.
I don't think it is.
The Complete Guide to Mid-Range Glazes, Glazing and Firing something. But yeah, The Complete Guide to Mid-Range Glazes is what it's called. The Complete Guide to Mid-Range Glazes, Glazing and Firing at cones 4 to 7.
Yeah, so that's the one that I used, and I studied that book for a month or something before I started mixing glazes. But I just went through and I found the ones that I liked, and then I found the recipes, and then I did that. And then when I found a recipe that I started with all different recipes when I started doing glazing, and then moved. I didn't really like how flat some of the glazes were, so I took those out, and then I started just adding different oxides to one recipe in particular in that book, and then boom, got them all.
And the other cool thing about glazy.org, they can actually take your recipe and show you the more sciencey part behind it and give you kind of a scale of where it falls in the kind of the axis of whether it's going to be more matte or glossy. And then if it falls within the range of being scientifically stable or something like that.
Yeah.
Chemistry-wise. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And also I wanted to... Andrea Wolf has... she and her husband developed a glaze calculation... a glaze calculation website that's a little bit more than glazy. It's also kind of the same as Digital Fire, but not super much. It's a little bit more in depth, I believe.
Or maybe I was thinking of Digital Fire. Does Digital Fire do the axis thing?
But once I find it, I'll let you guys know. But keep talking. So we've got glazy. Oh, Digital Fire is another. You can't find Well, you can find a few recipes on Digital Fire, but they have a system that you can use as a to make sure that everything's scientifically sound.
Maybe that's the one I was thinking of, not Glazy. It must be on Digital Fire that I was thinking of.
Digital Fire, yeah.
Yeah, the site's a little bit 1990s, but it's got some pretty technical info on there.
Yeah. And I mean, the Digital Fire, you can pay for a membership. Okay, so I found it. It's called Glaze Forge. GLAZEFORGE. And with Glaze Forge, you can easily substitute materials, fix crazing or dunting, change melting point, improve slurry suspension, compare recipes, reduce glaze cost, change chemistry, and reduce blistering. So... yeah.
And this looks like a subscription kind of deal.
Yeah, it's a subscription. It's not expensive, though. I think it's $50 for a whole year. Oh, it's $5. Yeah, it's $5 monthly or $50 for a year. So.
Yeah, so those are some places that you could find glazes. Well, not all of them have glazes necessarily. I guess Digital Fire doesn't have glazes, but...
And neither does Glaze Forge. These are just... Well, Digital Fire does have a few glazes, good clear recipes and good certain recipes, but it's on their regular website. And Glaze Forge is just for formulating what you already have. I also found my best, my white glaze, which I consider one of my favorite and best glazes. I found just as a Google search. Pinterest is surprisingly great.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I initially found some of my first, tests that I started making on my own was Pinterest, because I think I typed in cone 5 oxidation glazes or cone 6 oxidation glazes or something like that, and then you'll find things that fall in that realm, and obviously it's very visual, so you see, I kind of went based on color of I want a blue, and then I went that route.
Yeah.
So that's a good option to find. And obviously that'll link to kind of wherever. It could go to Ceramic Arts Network and go to a glaze that's on there, or it could link to glazy.org or wherever.
Right.
but that's a good option, and you can do it based on the oxidation or reduction temperature that you're firing to, which glazy.org does the same thing, but you can go through it visually and see what piques your interest. But yeah, I would say for anybody wanting to get into it, definitely the John Britt mid-range book if you're firing mid-range. If you're firing high fire, John Britt also has a complete guide to high firing glazes, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And I like there was a great glaze book that I found that has like really well-known potters, and it has a spread, like a 2-page spread for each one, and then it shows some of their like recipes that they use that they're willing to share. And I've used those. Those are really it was cool. I don't remember the name of the book.
Is that Amazing Glaze? Techniques, recipes, finishing, and firing?
No, I don't know what it's called.
That one's by Gabriel Klein and John Britt. There's one called... I think there's one called Mastering Glazes or something like that.
There probably is.
That's like a mid-range one that I've saved in the past.
Oh, I've seen a lot of people have the Glaze book. Okay, it's this one. It's... Oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? There it is. Glaze, the ultimate ceramic artist's guide to glaze and color.
It's called Glaze.
It's called Glaze.
Okay, I have that in my Amazon list. So that's by Brian Taylor and Kate Duty.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and it shows like different ones, and we've gone through them and like looked at all the recipes and stuff. It's really cool. It shows different artists and what glazes they use, and if you want to see it, Ryan, I'm bringing it with me. So
yeah, you can preview it on Amazon if you want to like look at what is included in the book. If you want to kind of see what's in there.
Yeah, I think that it's just really it's so much trial and error.
Yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, especially with like mixing it for the first time, understanding the right consistency it needs to be, and like how long. I would assume the people that are mixing their own are most likely dipping it. You probably wouldn't mix your own if you're painting on glaze, right?
Yeah, you could, but I don't know. Yeah. You could.
But yeah, in some of those books like the Mastering Cone 6, you'll understand about specific gravity and about putting it through a sieve and the process of actually mixing it from raw materials to a liquid state that's ready to be dipped and tested. And there's a lot that goes into it. Are there any other just general, it says glaze making tips? I mean, definitely have a sieve. What size sieve do you use?
Use a checklist. I use a 40 mesh, I'm pretty sure. It's 40 or 60, I can't remember.
I think mine's a 60 or 80 mesh.
Mine must be 60.
I want to say mine's an 80.
Look at us. We're so precise.
I can't remember. I mean, I've had the same sieve, and I've had it for 5 or 6 years, and it's the same one that I've always used.
Yeah, me too. The one thing I will say is that when you do pour the glaze through the sieve, they have that fancy gizmo that like turns around. I can't remember what it's called, but you don't need that. Just get a
$200 gizmo to do elbow grease. Use elbow grease to turn it.
You don't need that. Just get a toilet brush from the dollar store and just like move it around on the sieve. That's fine enough.
Move it around, or if you're confident enough to stick it on top of your pottery wheel, put it on your pottery wheel.
Don't do that.
Turn it on very low. Very low, and then I use one of those shorter toilet brushes that are more like flat top, and then it's got the bristles that point in one direction.
Yeah.
And then a rubber spatula or like silicone spatula, and the spatula will push the glaze to the sieve, and then the brush will push the glaze in through the sieve.
Seems very complicated.
And I do that until the bucket's empty, so I pour all of it into the little sieve that'll usually hold. How much would the sieve hold, would you say? If it's sitting inside the 5-gallon bucket, probably a couple gallons. A gallon. A gallon. And then you push it through while it's on the wheel. Because it's turning, you don't have to use your elbow grease to like move your hand around and push it through. But only do that if you're confident, because you could make a goddamn mess if you swirl this around on the wheel and you don't realize what the speed is on.
You will eventually. You will. One time. You will. I think it's a waste of time just to like get it up on the wheel and turn the wheel on and do all the things, but that's just because I have a system. So
it depends on how thick your raw materials are too.
That's very true. I like to let my glazes sit for a day. I didn't used to do this, and now I do it almost every time if I have the time. I'll mix. Okay, so you. Okay,
this is good for how you do it. So
how you do it? You weigh out your dry material. Okay, put it all in a bucket. I like to put it in a plastic bag inside a bucket, especially because you can close that plastic bag and kind of get the dust down.
Yeah.
And like every time you pour the dry materials in, and then you don't have to. I found that depending on what material is on top, if you mix up the material a little bit, it sinks to the bottom a little bit better.
Yeah.
Then I fill up a bucket about halfway. Yeah, because if EPK is on the top, you're fucked. Like it's gonna just sit on the top of the.
Yeah, I just use a whisk to just get the dry material stirred up a little bit. I just use
the scoop to just stir it up, just to incorporate it a little bit, and then
So you just do it by fill up a 5-gallon bucket halfway.
Yeah, I'm not a precise glaze person. So.
And this is all based on mixing up 10,000 grams at a time.
10,000 grams of glaze. So I'm not a very precise glaze person. A lot of people do it by measuring out the specific gravity and like doing it that way. I've never done it that way. I probably never will. But kudos to you who do. So I fill it up about halfway, and then I fill up another bucket a little bit, like maybe a little less than half the first bucket, and then just a couple inches for the second bucket so that I can have a little extra just in case. And I will take the dry material and then shake it into the water.
Yeah, so you gotta have a bucket of water, dry, on top, sprinkle it.
While I'm wearing a respirator, by the way, I shake it into the bucket of water and I let it like sink down just like you would plaster. And then I shake all of the material in. I try not to do big clumps, but you shake it in kind of like so it's dispersed. And then once it's all sunk to the bottom, if it doesn't sink, by the way, then I just give up and I mix between each one. But let it all sink to the bottom. I mix it up, and then I let it sit for a day. And then, and why I do that is because some of my materials are like old or something, and so it like leaving them in there for a while just lets them soak up what's there. And then the next day I'll come back. I will mix it up again, pour it through the sieve, whatever the fuck it's called. The sieve. I
don't know. I say sieve, but I don't even know if that's right.
Rebecca made fun of me for saying sieve the other day, so I think that's wrong. Anyway, the sieve. I will pour it through the sieve, and then usually I will, well, like this last time, if there's too much water on the top, people are like, oh, but it's sediment, you should let it evaporate. I never do that, so I just take out the excess water if it's like more than 2 inches or more than an inch on the top of water.
Yeah. I'll do pretty much the same thing, but yeah, I'll do the sprinkle the dry on. I'll pretty much make sure it's not, like you said, don't let it be in clumps, so don't like make a big mountain or a big volcano of dry material on top of the water and just like let it pile up. Kind of spread it out so that it can soak into the water and drop.
And if you stir it between, like if you stirred it at all, it will not soak in. So you can't like touch the water until it's all incorporated.
Oh, see, I don't do that.
Yeah, like I sometimes like I used to just stir it up between each time to like make sure it was all mixed in, and then I noticed that when I put the glaze material on top, it wasn't sinking down, it was just sitting on top.
Oh, see,
So
I've
that's
never
why
done that. I didn't know that. I just kept the drill mix always in there, and then when I sprinkle it on top, or when we sprinkle it on top, if I'm working with an assistant or something, they'll sprinkle while I stir, and we'll just stir as the dry gets in there, so that once it absorbs into the liquid, it's stirred in. But we're still going to put it through a sieve, so
right, you don't need to. You can just if it's clear water, then it just sinks to the bottom.
oh, okay.
So, also, this, so like,
So you don't
if you
even
have
touch that water at all.
no,
You just sprinkle it and let it sit, and then you're going to touch it the next day.
yep.
Okay.
I mean, I might mix it up after
everything is in there?
after
dry?
everything's in there, yeah. And because a lot of the times I'll mix the existing glaze that I already have into it. But like I used to put water in the existing glaze that I had and then sprinkle
Yeah,
the
that doesn't
glaze in,
seem
and
like
I
a
noticed
good idea, right?
it doesn't matter. And then I noticed that it wasn't sinking. It wasn't like
Was that after you already stirred the glaze up, though?
what?
Was that after you already stirred up the old glaze? So you stirred
like
up the old glaze, added half a bucket of water,
Right.
and then you added, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
already got a thickness to it and a
Exactly. So it doesn't let
consistency.
the like
Yeah.
yeah, so it doesn't let the dry material just sink down. So yeah, that's that's my trick at least. I guess I don't know if that's
That's
really a trick, but it
interesting.
has to be clean water, and you just sprinkle it in, and it just goes down, and it's fine. It's like, yeah.
Here's
But
a
if you mix it
question.
once, you got to mix it every time.
Okay. I wonder if my glaze would be different if I did that, or if the process would be different. I mean, I never wait a day. Usually I have the assistants doing it now, so they would
Yeah.
weigh all the dry material and add it to the water and do all that process the same day. Put it through the
Yeah.
sieve twice, and it would be good to go at the end of the day. But
The one that I find that's a very important to wait a day, the two that I find actually is my aqua glaze and my white glaze. The white glaze can be way too thin if you put too much water in it, and so I like to wait a day just to make sure.
so you can
Like-
sponge off water from the top.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at getting the water right, and that's what I was talking about, how everybody's like, well, you're taking away all the sediments that are like in the glaze or whatever, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. If I do that every time, I do that every time anyway, so it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
but yeah, that and then the aqua can be a little bit too thin. So I like to let it sit for a day just so that I can see how much water's floating to the top.
Here's a question. Some people will ask, do you use tap water or distilled water?
Oh, I don't care. I just use whatever's out of the sink.
Yeah, I use tap water too. I guess the difference would be it depending on where you live.
Yeah,
There could
yeah,
be
there's
different
iron
materials
limits.
and chemicals and stuff in your water that's from the tap. And
Yeah, I'm
if you
not
want to
saying that.
negate some of those things, your glaze, like if you mixed up a glaze in Florida, South Florida or something, I know the water there is kind of yellowish, the tap water, and it could be different if you move to Kentucky and you mixed up
Right.
a glaze. It could look different because the tap water is different and there's different
Yeah.
things in it, but
If you want the most consistent glaze all over, you want to use distilled water. But it's because a lot of waters that's from like wells or, the different cities have different levels of iron in them, and then they can affect the glaze. So, that's
But
why.
if you're staying in the same area and you're happy with what it comes out with tap water and you're going to consistently be living in that area and using
You're
that
fine.
tap water, then you're probably good.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Also, you briefly mentioned it, but yes, make sure that you're wearing your respirator anytime you are opening bags of raw materials, transporting them,
Mixing.
and opening bags, mixing them, weighing them, cleaning out dishes that have raw materials in it. Like, make sure that you
Yeah.
and clean off surfaces with a sponge or something that's wet to get the raw materials off, not dusting it or sweeping it and like brushing the raw materials onto the floor that you can kick up and dust with the dust on the floor, and mop frequently or semi-frequently so you don't have a bunch of dry glaze and raw materials on the floor that you're kicking up.
If you can mix your glazes outside, that's the most ideal. So that
and still wear a respirator.
And still wear a respirator, but that way
but
it's out in the open air, not in your house, or your studio. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you use gloves and stuff when you glaze?
Fuck no.
No. I've been using just the cheap blue gloves.
Do they help?
I just like that it rolls off of them easier. It's not, and my hands don't get so damn dry. Like, they get nasty and, dry when I glaze a lot.
I do feel like my hands get really dry when I glaze.
And wiping your hands on sponges and stuff from getting, I would much rather just use, that's why I use the gloves, just because it's so much cleaner to wash off. I mean, they could get sweaty and stuff, but it's not that bad. By the time I'm done glazing for 4 hours, it's not a big deal.
Well, you also dip your whole, most of your hand in, when you're glazing, you have the fingerprint marks, right?
If it's like a mug, but if it's a bowl or something, I might use tongs if it's waxed.
Yeah.
But,
I don't use gloves.
I've got to wipe stuff off of my gloves or off of my hands frequently enough that I don't want to, my hands will get really dry if I didn't use gloves, I would say.
That is true. I probably should wear gloves, but I thought Tara does that. Tara. Damn. I'm sorry, Tara.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty sure it was Tara. Not Tara.
What about, we didn't touch on underglazes at all and the difference in those.
Oh, yeah.
That might be good, and then we could probably end it with when you should financially switch. So, what about underglazes? There are options on the market. I don't know all the different options, but I would say the most popular ones are Amico and Speedball. Is Mako really popular in the top 3 of the underglazes too? No?
I don't think it's popular, but it fucking should be.
It should be.
I'm cussing a lot tonight, and I apologize.
I judge you. I judge you based on that.
I judge you!
Filthy mouth.
I know. What can I say? No. I don't know if anybody really even knows that Mako has underglazes, but they are...
I didn't know until you said it. Do you only know about them because you have the painted pot stuff? Or did you get them
kind of. Well, okay. The only reason I knew about them was because I was at the supply store and I was looking at Amico, because I've always used Amico velvet underglazes because that's what everybody uses. And then I saw the price and I was like, this is ridiculous. And then, because a little tiny 2-ounce whatever is $8.
Right.
What the hell? And I've been using Mako Stroke and Coats, which is not underglaze. It's overglaze or regular glaze, but it's stable. That's what we use for the paint your own pottery. And I use it for other things too. But I think that I'm pretty sure Chris at Tacoma Clarence Center was like, have you ever seen the Mako underglazes? And I was like, what? No. And she's like, they're half the price. Half the price.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about Amico is that I don't know if Mako does this or not, but they change their prices depending on how what color the glaze is, because reds are expensive,
Yeah.
Those pigments are expensive. So you could buy a bottle of red for $8 to $10, where you could buy a bottle of green for $4 to $6. Well, Makos are all pretty much just $3.50. That's it.
These are all 2-ounce bottles, is what you're talking about.
Yeah. They don't have...
I want to say the Speedball ones are comparable to the Mako price then, because I was just curious when I was in Queen City the other day. They don't sell both. Generally, if you go to a supplier, they most likely sell one or the other. They probably don't sell both. And Amico underglazes that I saw, I think it was a green or a blue or something, and it was like $20 or $22 for a pint of Amico velvet. And I want to say the Speedball, when I was looking online, was like $10 to $13.
Yeah.
So it was almost half the price.
So
it sounds like Mako is similar in price.
Yeah, Speedballs are definitely cheaper. This is $3.95 for a pint, and $3.90 like the Dragon Red, which is a super dark red, is $3.95, and the white, we'll go with white because we know that's would be the cheapest, is $3.95. I just love the consistency in pricing. I hate that about Amicos. I don't mind Amico's product. I think it's fine. I think that Makos are way smoother though. There's something about them. That's what I use on my
your the dot special ones, right? Your dots and lines.
Yeah. And I've used Mako, Speedball, and Amico.
Yeah. And
so I'd love for you to. I think it'd be interesting for you to use all three. But I know you're sponsored by Speedball, so I know.
I mean, I'm not sponsored, but I do get. I got all 36 bottles of Speedball underglazes for free that they sent me. So that's why I had to look up what the price of Speedball underglazes were.
That's called sponsorship.
Yes, I guess they sponsor me.
They sponsor you.
They support me.
And that's okay. And you support them, which is exactly what you should be doing. I just disagree. I have some of the Speedball underglazes and the reds and the like.
It depends on which one you're using. I have told them, a couple of them, that don't apply as smoothly as others, and there's some that work out just perfect.
Totally.
But some of them don't apply and work with my carving as easily as other ones. So
yeah,
and they've actually just contacted them and got with their research. I don't know. I can't remember
development.
Research and development. And he was asking me about specific colors that I was having an issue with. And he was like, hey, give me the details. And here's kind of the questions he asked, and was willing to go back and forth. And it was a newer color. So like they don't have a big sample size of actual people using it for years and years so they were open to saying, like, was it the amount of pigment in the color? Was it the consistency or whatnot? So I think that's pretty good that they're open to feedback and
that is good.
Some back and forth.
Well, and Speedball's up their game on their underglazes anyway. The I haven't used Amico in a while, but I do have pieces with Amico on them. And the thing that I've noticed that the difference is that I like, in chalkiness texture, if you're not going to put a glaze over it, right? This is just if we're talking about underglaze by themselves, okay?
To a full cone 6, is that what you mean?
Sure. Yeah, 5, 6.
Okay.
Chalkiness texture, in ratings from last to best, I would go Speedball, Amico, Makeup. Now, which I wouldn't, and I'm not like, I would have said Amico before Mako before I tried Mako, but for some reason it's just they're so silky and they don't feel like, and maybe that's not like a true underglaze, I suppose, but they're just a little bit smoother. They just feel more like not like clay, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Speedball is good with glaze over it for sure. Like, if you have the right glaze. I had a kind of a horror story with Tacoma's, like 2.0 PNZ clear was terrible and it kept fogging, and I thought it was the Speedball glazes, but it wasn't. It was the clear. So that was that. But and
I just use clear with my underglazes or slips. So
and then clear, and that's the thing, right? Because I don't do clear on top of mine. But what I will say is Mako, if you put it on too thick, it crackles off. So like
it pops off.
If you put it on too thick, so that's a bummer for that. Speedball dries faster than any of the other ones. If
That
I'm
could be the
doing-
chalkiness thing, that it dries and then it's more absorbent.
Yeah, if I'm doing anything with like a decal, or like, you know how I used to do the badges that had the words, and I would screen print the badges onto wet clay. Speedball dried so much faster than any of the other ones. I tried Amico and it was terrible because it would just stay wet forever. So that was awesome. And they look like the black looks fine. It looks great. So,
I would say out of the bottle, it might. I'm trying to remember. The color will definitely change from out of the bottle.
yeah.
When I was using the Amico Jet Black, for instance, it's more black. And
More black?
It stays pretty black, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I mean, the underglazes in general probably will change color a little bit anyways. Do your Mako ones change color?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit. And they have a few purples. Some purples don't work. God, there's this one blue, though, that is like the sexiest blue in the whole world.
The blues are my jam. Speedball's got some good blue options.
Yeah, they do. I like the colors that Speedball has. Their new colors are great.
Yeah. I still like the sea blue. That's my favorite blue.
Yeah. There's my favorite green is like pear green, I think, or something from Mako, and it's just, it's so magical. And then there's this like teal blue, and it's so soft. It's just so soft.
Yeah. The teal for Speedball is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what that question was referencing, talking about the underglazes I'm working with, but those are the ones I use. And I do also make a slip.
Yeah.
That is using dry trimmings from my clay body, my white Iceman clay body. I let those dry out. I weigh out 500 grams of it into a little cup. Add 20% black mason stain to it.
Okay.
So 100 grams of mason stain, and then add water to that. Let it sit. Let it fully integrate over a day, and then I mix it up with an emulsion blender. So that's how I make my slip. And the benefit there is it's a lot cheaper than underglazes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, the cost
Underglazes
difference.
have so many different colors.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could go the route of getting mason stains and mixing your own. But if you're talking scale here and you're making, like if I started making my carved mugs and saying I needed 50 red mugs, like how much would that cost and how much work would go into, making slip for 50 of them? I mean, I'd probably make it in like a 5-gallon or 3-gallon bucket or something, but
Yeah.
Versus buying bottles of underglaze that are going to come to the same consistency.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to make your own underglaze?
No, I don't. I mean, what would be the main differentiator between a slip and an underglaze, like chemically? Would you add something to a slip to make it an underglaze?
So no. It's an underglaze is it is a glaze. A slip is clay with color added to it. So the difference is, like you couldn't put a slip on bisqueware, but you could put underglaze on bisqueware. Because a slip is going to dry and shrink, whereas an underglaze is going to not shrink. It'll just dry. So with an underglaze, I feel like I want to say it was like EPK, silica, and Frit 3140, 3134. I want to say it was that, but I'm not sure. And it was like equal parts plus the stain. It turned out terrible. Mm-hmm. But like I didn't do it well. But you're also supposed to like ball mill them for a while. So
yeah, that process is to get it to the right consistency so it's not clumpy and stuff.
Yeah, and ball mill them is essentially putting them in a rock tumbler, by the way.
Yeah.
Or a jar and putting it on your wheel, letting it just spin around.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I made them, and I thought that they would be way cheaper because that's how I found out about doing the mason stains, how they had the 10-pound rule, because at the beginning of when I was doing paint your own pottery, I was like, I'm just going to make my own instead of buy them.
That's what you go into. You're like, I'm going to save money making it, but you don't appropriately estimate the time and involvement that goes into actually producing this product.
Well, yeah, and like also I had no idea what stroke and coats were, and I thought that you had to do underglazes with a clear glaze on top. It's not true. You don't. And now I get like a wholesale price for stroke and coats, and I get a wholesale price for the Mako stuff too, like all the Mako stuff. But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna do this, and then it turned out to be a disaster.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so the main reason I use the black slip is because I'm producing a lot more pieces
just
with the black. And also when I fire it, I don't have to put any aluminum hydrate on the shelf because it doesn't stick.
That's true. Yes, that is another thing, because those freaking underglazes, they will
stick if you do not put something down on the shelf. So if you're going to put anything on the bottom, which I got a few questions on some of those different videos, process videos on Instagram.
Yeah.
Showing the carving and the bottoms, and people are like, how does that not stick to the shelf? So I had to continually say, like, I dust the shelf with aluminum hydrate, and it's kind of like a barrier between the shelf and the pot, and you could just wipe it off. It's not a big deal. So.
Oh my God. One time when I was a wee teacher, like it was like my first year teaching or something, I had a student that like wanted to do hand building, and she made this big birdhouse, and she wanted to paint the top red, and I had no idea how I was supposed to fire this thing, so we painted the top with underglaze, and then I put it on the shelf, and it stuck to the shelf. It was terrible. It was horrible. I felt so bad. It was horrible.
Yikes. Yeah. All right. The last part of this was, when should someone financially make the switch from store-bought glazes to mixing their own? We'll call out the people that asked these questions, by the way. So thanks to everyone who asked these. But this will probably finish this up. So were you ever doing them commercial and then made the switch, or was the financial part of it a factor, or no? It is a factor. It is a factor now, though, right?
Yeah, it's a factor now, but it was never a factor before. I think that I would say, this is me generalizing or assuming, but I would assume that most people that use commercial glazes, especially if they're like the pint jar glazes, you know, where you like buy a pint and brush it on.
Yep. I'm thinking Amico, Potter's Choice all the way.
Yeah, I know
so many people that use those.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I've heard good things about all of them, Mako and Amico. But I would assume that they are not, I almost said classically trained. Not like, you know, they may come from like a hobby pottery standpoint or something where they just want to get it done, and they don't really want to get into like the science behind it. And they just want something cool. You know, they just want like a cool glaze.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense to make
that's predictable.
Yeah.
And they see somebody else that has it and they think it looks cool and they want to say, how did you do that?
Right.
And then they get the ingredients of, I use this one with this one. And then you start there and you get a couple and you're like, I know what this looks like. And then I see a recipe. Oh, I have that teal glaze, or I have that ancient copper, and I know that looks good with this textured turquoise or something like that. And then you're like, oh, well, I see this other one. It looks like there's some ancient copper in there. What's that other color? And then they get that other color. Now they have 3 colors that they can play with. And then your assortment just kind of grows from there, I would say. That's probably accurate. Right. I mean, you also may not have a lot of space. I mean, I have students that do class at Pick or Hunt, and they don't even have any interest in having a wheel at home or anything like that. But they buy commercial glazes because they like the look of them versus the studio ones. Like, it's worth their investment to pay for those because they like the results. And it's low effort.
My God.
It's a little jar that sits on a shelf. They could find a space for a jar to sit.
Totally. And also, some of those glazes are really freaking cool. Like, really freaking cool. There is one, like, commercial pinty paint-on glaze that I did buy. Honestly, I don't even think that I knew that you could buy commercial glazes when I started making glazes because that was never an option. Like, my teacher was, like,
Did you never go into a pottery supply store or anything, though, and see
I just skipped past
shelves
that
of
section.
jars?
I just, like, skipped... I mean, I guess I knew that they were there, but I just skipped past it because, like, my teacher was, like, so old school.
It could be one of those you walk into a supply store and you look past them because you're like, that doesn't apply to me because I don't know what that is. Or
I don't even
like,
care. Yeah.
I'm looking for clay and
Glaze.
kiln furniture or something, or
like
raw
glaze
materials. Like,
right. And so I think that was kind of like something that was a reality, but like, yeah, so it wasn't ever an option. It was like, thankfully we convinced Larry to do a glaze class for us when I was at Bruning, and he did like this glaze chemistry class, and he's very opinionated, as he should be. He's an old potter, but like, there was no mention of buying glazes. He doesn't even believe in buying mason stains. Like, he's an oxide man, like, fully. Like,
really?
He's like, don't buy mason stains. They're going to go out of business eventually. And we're like, and he's like, and then where are you going to be? And so he's like totally an oxide person. And I'm like, hello, you can say the same thing about oxides. But,
they still have to be mined, right?
right. Yeah. And so, like, it was just never even an option. It was just like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to make my own glazes. Like, there was no question of whether it was more or less expensive. It was, but it was like, you want to make your own glazes so that you have your own identity within that too.
Right.
But anyway,
Plus
I did buy one
right?
glaze.
If you know how to mix a
jar of
glaze and you know how to
and
mix.
That was only because somebody. What?
Are we on a delay here?
Okay, we're back.
What were you just saying? I was speaking at the same time.
I'm sorry. You paused and I didn't hear you. I bought this like gold colored glaze because somebody wanted a gold like unicorn horn or something like that. And it looks cool, but I've only used it twice.
Not the luster stuff. Not gold luster. You're talking about a glaze. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a copper bronzy glaze. It's cool.
Oh, okay.
I could never make a glaze like that. I mean, I'm sure I could, but I'm not going to try.
Well, I think the benefit of knowing how to mix glazes is that scales. Like, you can do that with if you know how to mix a glaze, then you know how to mix any glaze, right? You can follow a recipe. You know how to find materials because you've bought them somewhere before. So you know how to find raw materials. You know how many pounds to do based on a recipe. You know about how much to buy, and then you know how to store it, and the price is inherently going to be less because you're doing all of the time consuming effort of producing to get it to a liquid state. Whereas if you buy it off a shelf, it's already going to be at a liquid state, or somebody has already put a lot of labor into getting it on the shelf.
Right.
So
did we answer that question? What do you think? When
would you financially make the switch? I mean, like, I would say, why are people making the switch? I mean, I would say what would be the main reason you would make a switch if you were using commercial? Would it be financial?
No. I don't think it would.
Would it be I'm looking for this color and I haven't found a commercial one that looks like this, so...
Or vice versa. Like what we did doing... Because, like, here's the thing. If you start out with commercial, you're already spending a lot of money. Now, I might make a switch if I'm producing a certain amount. You know?
That's a good point.
Like, if I'm gonna be glazing 1,000 mugs in a week, I am not going to be buying that glaze commercially. That's just idiotic. Like, you'd have to sell your mugs for like $500. Like, it's just, I mean, not really, but like, you'd for sure have to be part of the $100 mug club, and like, it's not financially.
Actually, that would probably be the main drive. I would say we could agree that when you are selling at a scale that your production is making the price of your items too out of the market for the people buying your stuff. Does that make you're pricing your mugs so high because your materials cost so much that it's kind of getting out of hand a little bit? Or you just can't paint on glaze anymore. Like, if you have to produce 100 mugs in a month and you're used to painting on commercial glazes, would it financially make sense, besides the financial part of it? Also, hey, can I dip this stuff and make it so much more efficient? I feel like the tedious process would make me switch.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to be super old school on this. I'm going to say what every old school person is thinking. If you're making 150 mugs a month plus, unless it's something like, what I'm thinking of is something like a painting on very specific line work, and like you're using stroke and coats or something like that. But if you're like doing a let's use Cherico pottery style glazing, like if you're doing something like that where the glazes really do make the piece, you best be not like, it just doesn't make sense to use somebody else's glaze. You should be like, that should be your own piece, you know, like that's the old school potter in me. Like, if you're making enough to make a living off of this, like, wouldn't it be awesome to just be like, yeah, I make that glaze. Like, I made that glaze, like, not Mako or Amico. Like,
but maybe that person is doing so much producing, they would prefer to make a number of things and buy a commercial glaze that they can easily just apply. Because I'm thinking of Tara and Matt, because they probably use a number of commercial glazes.
I know, but like, I guess what I'm thinking of is production pottery, not like actual production pottery. You know, like if you're somebody like Rebecca or Cherico or
you're not contacting
East Fork.
You're not contacting Mako or Amico to buy, Potter's Choice, whatever, right, and buying, I want to buy 5 gallons of ancient copper and dumping it into a bucket so that you can dip it.
Right. Like, and you have so much more control over your product. You know, you have so much more control over the glaze that you have and like what you're making. Like, if Amico messes up on a glaze, which I'm sure they have or haven't, I don't know. But if they mess up on a glaze and they don't tell you,
there's also a demand for that specific color too. They could run out, competing with the other market of people using that color. So if you want 3 pints of it and they have a sale going on, everybody else bought it up, they don't have any in stock, then you're limited to, hey, I can't produce this product that I need because I don't have anywhere I could buy it. You're limited to that too, right?
Okay, so do you follow Studio Arhoj or Arhoj?
I don't think so.
They're in Copenhagen, Denmark. They have like an insane amount of followers, like 155,000
Studio
Arhoj. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it correctly because it's
okay.
In a different language, but they have a billion glazes, like a dip of a billion, and I can't I don't know. I wonder if they make their own. I don't know, but they have a billion, so many.
Jeez,
so many glazes, like different combinations, like.
But that's like, I mean, Kurt Hammerly has all these different glazes, but he's mixing them himself. So he really loves the glaze making process.
He does. But these guys like make hardcore production and they're making thousands of colors. And I just wonder if they make their own, or if they're just buying like, or if they make one base glaze and then like add different colorants to that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's hard. You have to run the numbers, right? You'd have to say, how many pieces am I producing? How much?
Bless you, Rachel.
Yeah, you can hear her in the background.
Yeah, I heard her sneeze.
And how much am I spending in glazes to produce these pieces, and do the math to figure out how much you have to price your pieces to make it worth it.
I think the cost has to match the like the demand, I suppose. Like if you're buying commercial glazes and you are, by the way, I have nothing against commercial glazes. I don't have anything against commercial glazes. But if you're like buying commercial glazes and you are making a ton of pieces, like is your cost of pieces reflecting the cost of the, you know, that's where I would probably be pretty particular, you know, like if somebody was buying glazes that was more expensive and selling cheaper mugs, I'd be like, okay, either you got to raise your mug price to match the expenses that you're putting into this mug, or you have to start making your own. And, you know, just to make even a profit. But also, like, sometimes you don't want to make, like, why would you switch from a commercial glaze if you're selling it and it's selling and it's doing great and you're making money off of it, you know?
Yeah, why go through the process of finding an alternative that you make yourself?
Yeah, like...
And spend time, money, and testing for something that you don't know that you can recreate.
Right, like, yeah. That's the thing, too. It's like... And there's some commercial glazes that, like, nobody knows how to make. Well, I mean, some people do. Like Josh does. Josh used to work for Amico, so... He kind of knows how to make a lot of those glazes, but...
But I was thinking the old school person in you was just saying, if you're making this much, like, you should be making your own glaze. But now you're saying, I don't have anything against commercial glazes. I just have against people that are using commercial glazes that are producing someone.
No. I know that. Like, the old school person, like, it's not that I... You're judging me. No.
I get it. Your answer is not so black and white, but you're saying in certain circumstances, you feel like you should be. But...
It's like my brain is like fighting against myself, I guess, in this particular...
it's contradictory, right? You can think both ways. You can be like, I think you should, but like the statement you just said, if it's selling well and you know there's demand for it, why would you completely change and take that out of your inventory?
Yeah, like, it's not like my opinion of what you should do. Like, it's kind of like how we were talking about, like, if the market is too saturated, it's like, who the fuck cares? Like, we can't say anything to that. Like,
yeah.
It's like, if it's working for you, then it's working for you. If it's not, then it's not. I can still have opinions about whether I think that you should or you shouldn't, but that doesn't mean that it makes it right or wrong. And
I also would say, if you're going the commercial route, and the part that I would try to cut the costs would be the time and investment I'm spending applying the glaze. If you're buying it commercial and you have to paint it on, I would find out, is there a way that I can like make this a dippable thing, or find a different way to apply it so that it saves me time and it does cut down the costs?
Yeah.
Or is there a comparable glaze? Like Ancient Copper and Amico Potter's Choice is very similar to Kentucky Mudworks Inferno Red. I can buy Inferno Red in 10-pound batches of dry and mix it, or 20 pounds or whatever, and then put it into a bucket and make it a dipping glaze. Yeah. Or I can buy Ancient Copper and it looks very similar and I can paint it on. You might be able to buy it in bigger batches, but that's kind of like... You also have to price your piece based on the time and effort you're putting into it of applying the glaze. Like, that stuff is like liquid gold when you're using a pint of commercial, so...
Right. And let's not forget the people that just have absolutely zero interest in trying to figure out how to make a glaze.
Definitely.
Like, there are those people, and I'm almost there with you. But there definitely are those people. Oh, I will say this. I remember this and I forgot it, and now I've remembered it again. In regards to if you're doing production, dinner sets, all those things, working for wholesale clients. Like when I started working with Starbucks, they had to they were like, "Can I get an MDMS material data sheet of all of the materials in this glaze so that we can make sure that it's food safe?" And I wasn't making the glaze at the time. I was using Bruning's glaze, which of course I knew that they were safe, but I didn't know their recipes. And so, and I was too scared to be like, "Can I get a material data sheet? Like, can I get all the ingredients in this glaze so that I can give it to them?"
Is that as simple as just giving them the recipe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, well, no, not really. I mean, you'd have to get the recipe, and then you'd find the material data sheet on every single material.
Oh,
so,
okay.
A material data sheet basically just outlines what the chemical is. Like, the only reason I know what a material data sheet is because I worked for a paint company, and you have to, like, the MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet. And and then there's another one, has all of the info about the paint, what's in it, what is, the components.
That's because of hazardous material disposal and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, same thing with like when Starbucks was like, "I need to know exactly what's in this." Like, all of your clays have material safety data sheets, and they have, like, info sheets on what is inside of them. You don't have them probably, but your supplier does. And all your glazes do as well. So, because you have to. You have to for, like, for safety reasons. So, anyway, if you are not making your own glaze, you have to have that sheet. Or if you're just, like, if you're at a studio and you're using somebody else's glazes, they have to do it too. They had to take a few of my mugs and, like, crush them up and test them. They had to, like, break them up and test them because I didn't have the data sheet, so they had to do, like, a test for it. Was like,
so that's based on what client you interact with.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned the wholesale thing. If you have to, or if you want to be able to sell your pieces wholesale, will it financially make sense? Can you charge a wholesale price for this thing if you're buying commercial glazes? If you're using commercial glazes.
Yeah.
Besides pricing, how much you need to charge an end customer, can you even produce those pieces at a wholesale price or consignment price? Does it make sense for you to do that and make a profit?
It seems kind of ridiculous to me. On the same, yes, I agree. Can you? But also on a different subject, but the same subject that we were talking about previously, how we were contradicting ourselves. I'm about to do it again. So what? I'm like, I feel like I don't really actually give my opinion. I just put out a lot of different ideas.
The thing is, there's so much gray out there. Nothing is black and white, I feel like.
Nothing is black and white. Anyway, so we talked about painting last week. And, like, how it was cheaper than clay. And I would like to compare painting with ceramics for a quick, hot second. Because okay. Back in the day, obviously, that people had to make their own paint. They, like, made it from scratch. Like, Leonardo da Vinci, all those people had to make their paint from scratch. Okay? And then it got super, super, like, normalized when paint companies came and were like, "We're providing this paint for you. Like, here you go. You can just buy this tube," which is fantastic. Why is it so frowned upon to buy glaze when it's literally the same thing as buying a tube of paint? Like we're like, I mean, like,
also the difference in the paint thing, though, you can mix paints. You can't mix glazes like you can paints.
I mean, you kind of can.
You could get uniqueness by mixing two different bottles of paint and get a different color depending on the amount of each
Yeah, but
color
I have-
you use, and you could easily get a unique color. With glaze, you can't have that.
Not true. I take 2 different glazes and layer them on top of each other. It's just a different technique.
You could do that.
I have.
I'm talking about the volume, like the 1-to-1, or you could like a scoop of this color and a scoop of that color is going to yield this unique color. Can you do that with glaze technically?
Maybe.
And be confident in the result.
What
I'm saying is you could do that with paint and get a unique color.
Yeah, you are correct. But still, it's like, so, like, why is it so acceptable for painters to buy a tube of paint when, you know, if they were like, quote unquote, legit, they would be making their own paint. And for ceramic artists, it's like, oh, you buy your glaze?
I mean, the same thing could be said about clays too, right? Why don't you make your own clay? Why are you buying commercial clay? I mean, I've never heard that. Nobody's ever said that to me. Like, why are you using commercial clay? Because it's like, why go through the process of making your own? But
somebody said that to me. They're like, you should make your own clay. It's so nice. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I was like, I don't want to make 1,000 pounds a week. Thanks.
I've made my own clay in high school, or not in high school, in college, because it was so cost effective. And it was a project. It was like, hey, if you want to make your own glaze or your own clay, here's the recipe, and it's going to cost you and the 3 people that you're doing it with, you know, $50 for 300 pounds of clay or whatever, because you're doing all the damn work to put it in this big drum to mix it and getting all the materials and weighing them and doing the manual labor to bag it all. Like, that's the money that you're paying.
Like, we always say work smarter, not harder. But then when somebody buys a glaze, we're like, oh, you know? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. What are your glazes
for different folks?
For financial? Going back to the financial part, what have you mathematically figured out how much you pay for a 5-gallon bucket of glaze generally?
Like one that I mix versus one that I buy?
Yeah.
But remember, we kind of did it.
We kind of did this, but mine on average, if I'm talking like my floating blue, I'm paying about $25 for a 5-gallon bucket if I'm doing the raw materials and mixing it up. Yeah.
Is it rutile?
It's rutile, red iron oxide, and bentonite probably. It might have something else too, but
I'm sure it has bentonite. Almost all of my glazes have bentonite.
It definitely has bentonite, but it might have a third.
Bentonite's super cheap, but
third colorant.
I mean, really, the cost comes from your frits, and your oxides. You know.
Yeah, the colorants for sure.
Because
the other
my
stuff
cobalt,
is cheap, like the Nefsi and EPK and silica.
That stuff's like
that's
$10
all cheap
for a 50-pound bag. It's like nothing.
Yeah, that stuff's cheap.
Yeah, I mean, that's really where your cost is coming from. So, like, I couldn't figure out how to do a purple glaze. I really wanted to get, like, a lavender purple glaze.
Yeah, the floating blue is light rutile, red iron oxide, and cobalt oxide.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because cobalt's going to pump your glaze up quite a bit anyway. And, oh my god, my old cobalt glaze used to have so much cobalt in it. I cut it down by, like, 4. And it's much better now. But I would say that my, like, new blue glaze that has the cobalt in it is probably, like, 15 to 20. Maybe.
Yeah. And then my commercial glaze, if I'm talking satin black, it's probably close to $100 for a 5-gallon bucket, maybe.
Mine's 75.
Maybe more than that. I'm looking it up. Satin Black, Kentucky Mudworks. Come on. Cone 6. I also get the Inferno Red from there. In a 10-pound dry is $92. Okay, so I spoke wrong. It's $100-ish for half a bucket. So technically about $190, $185 for a 5-gallon bucket. But I'm also getting it at a discount because I'm usually getting it 20% off. So
yeah. Wouldn't it be good if Becca had a digital version of her glaze recipes? It would be good, wouldn't it?
$150 for a 5-gallon bucket of satin black.
$150?
$150, yeah. Versus $30 for.
I mean, that's a lot of freaking money.
It is. But like you said, the satin black is hard to get if you're using it for food safe. And I could go through the testing. I don't really want to.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of what you're paying for. You know what it's going to look like. They also usually have sample tests on clays that they have. Like I used Mudworks clay, so I know what it's going to look like on their clay because they have samples, as well as I've used it. But, you know.
So 25 pounds dry. Oh, I was wrong. They have upped their prices. 25 pounds dry of the Raven is $92.50. But I got like a full... I have extras from the last time that I mixed it. And so it made it a little bit more than 5 gallons.
So it was $92 for a whole bucket?
For more than a bucket. 25 pounds dry.
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. And some of these commercial, if you're getting a Potter's Choice pint, how much is that?
What?
If you're getting a pint of paint on glaze from Amico, how much is that?
Amico Potter's Choice.
Googling.
Well, I guess we'll go with...
I'm looking at Clay King, but...
Okay, we'll go with Blue Spark. Blue Spark. A pint of Blue Spark is $25. It looks really cool, though. Pretty snazzy. Got little speckles in it.
Yeah, if you're looking on Clay King, you can actually get 25 pounds of dry. And it's pretty comparable to the Mudworks glazes that I was just talking about.
Yeah. Mako does large quantities of dry, right? Because John Schmidt has them, right? He does large quantities.
Yeah, Mako does too, yeah. I was talking about Amico, but yeah, Mako does too.
Yeah.
Whoa, this ancient copper, 25 pounds of dry. The list price is $300. That's a lot. That's a lot. Jeez.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm. Now we're just on this like ridiculous. Oh my gosh. Okay, story time. One time I went to go get glaze stuff and like clay stuff or whatever. And Larry Bruning was like, "Hey, will you get me some stuff? I already have it paid for. You just have to pick it up." And so I was at Seattle Pottery Supply. I got 25 pounds of cobalt.
25 pounds of cobalt? Oh no, I lied. God.
50 pounds. 50 pounds of cobalt because they come in a 50 pound bag. 50 pounds of cobalt. Do you want to guess how much that was?
I'm doing the math in my head.
I think I'm trying to remember.
$2,000. You don't even know what it was.
I don't even know what it was. Yeah, it was probably about $2,000. But his total order was like $10K.
Oh my
because of what he got. And it was only like 5 bags of material.
Oh my god.
He was like, "Did you look at the price?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Look at it." And I was like, "Holy shit."
She's like, "You better treat that as precious cargo."
Yeah.
Why did he even trust you to get that for him?
Well, I'm a pretty trustworthy person.
I mean, I hope it wasn't a long drive or anything. I mean, you're carrying like $10,000 worth of materials in your car.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but someplace like that, you know, they go through money like it's crazy. It's just crazy. They spend money and earn money really quickly. 10,000 here, 10,000 there, 20,000 here, 20,000 there. It's like nothing.
Cost of doing business, right?
Yeah, I would never, ever. I don't ever want to be that
have
popular.
expenses that high that it's.
No, thank you. No, fucking thank you.
All right, we're pushing 2 hours here. Thank you to Alex Creates for sending us questions. arf.ceramics, ARF, JH_pottery, which is Josh Henslick, I believe. JH Pottery Works, Josh Heim, and Salbal Studios.
Sable.
I think we've said this before and had issues with how to say it. Yeah, so thank you all for those questions. Hopefully we answered a lot about glazing. So much to talk about with glazes and contradicting ourselves. And hey, if you're using commercial or mixing your own, who gives a shit? Do whatever you want to do.
Who gives a shit? Do what you want.
Don't feel like you have to mix your own glazes or else you're not a professional potter or that you're not up to a standard that other people have set. Yeah. Like, do what you want to do. If customers are buying it and you're like happy with it, then explore the options, right?
There's a lot of people that are like old school and like have certain opinions, and obviously we discussed that a little bit, but you do you, boo. You do you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Time to go to sleep.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate it, and we're having so much fun. If you want to follow us individually on Instagram, you totally can. Ryan's Instagram handle is @RDCeramics, and mine is 5 Lines Pottery. That's the number 5. We would love to hear from you, and don't forget to write us a review on our podcast. We read every single one of them, and we totally appreciate them. They help us out an awful lot, and they also put smiles on our faces. I hope you guys continue to listen, and we love you. Thanks. Bye.